Every time the words 4th of July are spoken, it pushes a tear to my eye, and somewhere off in the distance, an eagle screeches. I just love the 4th of July.
America, right?
Oh, yeah.
The opportunities that we have as business owners operating and living in the land that we have today.
America's the land of opportunity. Well, yes, it is the land of opportunity, because people the world over have in the past fled to America because it's a land of opportunity, and they're still coming to America because it is still a land of opportunity.
Yep. Do you spend your time the way that you want to?
Right.
And is the quality of your life up to the level that you want it to be, right? And being able to decide that on your own, through your own efforts, that's America, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
money doesn't buy happiness, but money buys time, and time buys freedom, and freedom buys...
Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to turn you into a bug money millionaire. This episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, right next to me, the one and only Jay Klaus. What's up, dude?
What's up, Eric? And my Bug Bucksers, what's going on?
Dude, have you seen that people are saying, "What's up, my fellow Bug Bucksers" in the Facebook group?
Have they?
Yeah.
For real?
For realsies.
It's catching on?
It is catching on.
Yes! Okay, that's great.
I keep seeing it, and I'm like, oh man, that's so crazy. That's
You know what? That makes me so happy. I feel like I usually do a pretty good job of like giving people nicknames, and then the nicknames catching on. I think that I have dubbed probably 50 nicknames to people over the years that are just like sometimes outrageous.
Yeah.
But then they just end up sticking. So that makes me feel so good that people are saying Bug Bucksers. Let's keep that up.
Yeah, dude, you're just so popular. You're a trendsetter.
I have been called worse than that. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I noticed the new do. I noticed your new style, a new haircut.
Yeah, you like that?
I do like it.
Yeah. So Jana has been cutting my hair every 2 weeks, the same exact way. I guess what would you call it? A modified torch? I don't know what you call it. Right? It's like a torchy flame hair, right? It kind of flips over. But anyway, the other day, Jan was just like tousling my hair, and she goes, "I think I'm going to give you a different haircut." And I said, "Okay, why not?" So she gave me a different haircut. And the reason why I told you to bring it up at the beginning of this episode was because she said, "I'm actually giving you Eric's haircut."
What's what I'm talking about, baby?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, look at this. We kind of like look at each other.
Yeah, see? So for those listening, not that this is a really excellent topic of conversation, but it's interesting. Jana has been giving me the same haircut for 17 or 18 years. And every once in a while, she'll cut other people's haircuts, like our sales guys or people that we know. And she'll tell them, the guy will sit down and say, "Okay, well, what I normally do is a 2 on the sides and blah, blah, blah." And then everybody else will laugh. And they'll say, "Do you like Jake's hair? Because that's the haircut you're getting," right?
Like
Jana does. Jana's one here. You're getting the Klaus man. That's the haircut you're getting.
Yep.
But oh, how the turntables have turned.
You got the Eric.
Now I've got the Eric.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it. I guess it makes sense because she's been cutting my hair since I was 12.
Correct.
Which just a little bit predates your guys' courtship.
Yeah.
So,
slightly, yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah.
There we go.
So I never imagined that the Eric would be the hairstyle that I'd really like. We're still working on it. It's a work in progress, but
looks good. I like it.
Thanks.
I like it.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Well, today we have a fantastic topic we're going to share with you guys, but before we dive into that, I want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform like Apple, YouTube, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. Make sure to check out our Facebook group, Bug Bucks Plus. That is BUGBUX Plus. We've got over 4,200 other pest control owners in that group waiting to connect with you and share their thoughts. It's also the best way for you to share your feedback on our show and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join the group.
Do it. And subscribe.
Yes, subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yeah, please do.
Yep.
All right, so today we have a special episode. This podcast episode is going to be dropping right around the 4th of July.
I think the 4th of July is on a Thursday.
It is. It is. Yep. So on the 4th of July, this podcast episode will drop.
Oh, man.
That's amazing. All right.
Know, that just, every time the words 4th of July are spoken, it pushes a tear to my eye, and somewhere off in the distance, an eagle screeches. I just love the 4th of July.
Yes. It's amazing, dude.
Isn't it?
It is. Well, and I'm a summer guy, and maybe I can't tell if I love summer because I love the 4th of July or if I love the 4th of July because I love the summer.
They're synonymous.
Right? Like it's intertwined, intermingled. I love it, dude. And I wanted to spend this episode talking about what it means to you. Not just the 4th of July itself, but America, right?
Oh, yeah.
The opportunities that we have as business owners operating and living in the land that we have today. So,
dude, I might get a little weepy on this episode because I have a hard time talking about the 4th of July and America without feeling emotional about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's, being born and raised in America and, spending my whole entire professional career here, there's a lot of things that people take for granted.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously we whine about our government, we whine about all these other things and taxes and all this stuff. But you don't really sit down and really take a minute to think about all the good things, all the good opportunities, all the advantages that we have. Just living here, number one, but number two, as business owners here.
Right.
Huge advantages. But I know that, for your family, you guys have a unique background being immigrants.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to kind of share with the audience a little bit about that first.
Yeah. And I bet we have viewers or listeners or whatever who probably have a similar situation where maybe either you emigrated from another country or somebody, a relative, maybe even far back generations. I mean, I guess even if dig far back enough into all of us, and
we're two white guys, so far back you go. Eventually.
Yeah. So So for me, I think one of the biggest reasons, one of the main reasons why America means so much to me is because I'm what would that be, second generation immigrant. So my dad, my father, Johannes Stephanus Adrianus Klaus II, was born in January of 1945 in Nazi-occupied Holland.
Wow.
And it's a really remarkable story. I mean, before my grandma died, we went and recorded a bunch of stories, and did interviews with her and stuff. And the experience that my family had is unimaginable to us today. My dad was born in January. He was born in the middle of the night, and January in the Netherlands is harsh, right? It's not a forgiving, right? It's not Arizona in January. It's friggin' Holland in January. And at that time, his uncles and his father were pretty much in hiding. There was like a space, as far as I can understand this, there was a space between the floors. They lived in a flat in The Hague. And there's a space, the way that I understand it, it's like between the floors, like between the ceiling of their flat and the floor of the flat above them.
Wow.
And they'd climb up a bookcase, or there was like a bookcase that they'd go behind. So it was like totally like an Anne Frank, Corrie ten Boom type of situation, right? And so my dad's uncles would hide up in that space when the Germans would come around. And anyway, the night that my dad was born, he was born like in the middle of the night, and his father came out of his hiding place and got on his bicycle, which was just rims because the Nazis had taken all of the rubber, any metals, like they took their silverware, like everything that they took for the war effort, right? And so he gets on this bicycle with no tires, just metal rims, and rides on the icy cobblestone streets to go and get the midwife. And when he came back with the midwife, he risked his life, you know. And when he came back with the midwife, my dad had already been born, and he was, you know, underweight. Everybody was malnourished. And somebody said, I think it was actually maybe his father or a father-in-law or an uncle or somebody said, this is a horrible time to bring a child into the world. You should just let him die.
Whoa. Jeez, dude.
Right? So that's how my dad came into the world. And then when he was 7, they immigrated to the United States from The Hague. And it was like with the church, right? You know, they had a church sponsor, and they brought him over. And then he grew up in Salt Lake City, and he didn't speak English. He just spoke Dutch. And there's, you know, all these stories about my dad growing up. But the reason why that's so meaningful to me is because I don't know that I will ever experience hardship like what my family experienced. You know, when my father's family immigrated to the United States, he was 7 years old. My grandma was pregnant with his third little sister, and it was a real challenging journey. Right? They came by ship, and it was a long trip. And then get this. This is where immigration history and kind of like U.S. history merge. So they immigrated. They came through Ellis Island, right? And then when they got to New York, they took a Greyhound bus.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the funniest part to me is they took a Greyhound bus from New York to Salt Lake City, right? So it's just really, really interesting. So, you know, I think about that, and I think about what my life is like. You know, I'm not in hiding. Nobody that I know has ever been in hiding. You know, our hometown has never been occupied by an invading army. You know, we've never starved. When my dad was a baby and my grandma was nursing him, they lived on rations of saltine crackers. That's all they ate. So now, like, I look at my life now, you know, and I think this might be the same way for a lot of second generation, and then especially when you get into third generation Americans or descendants of immigrants, you lose touch with where your family came from sometimes, I think, or what they went through. And I am trying really, really hard to not ever forget that. You know, I'm trying really hard not to ever forget where my roots come from, and where what my father went through, what his family went through to get here to the land of opportunity.
Yep.
You know, and that's remember the old cartoon American Tail?
Yes.
Well, the streets are made of, how's it go? There are no cats in America, and the streets are made of
a bunch
cheese.
of mice singing.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And that's the great thing is that was kind of the ideal. There are no cats in America, and the streets are made of cheese. You know, and so they came, found a better opportunity, and then still they had struggles. You know, coming up as immigrants in the 1950s.
Oh yeah.
In America, and then out of all of that I was born out of all of that, you know, and here I am in my mid 40s, and dude, I don't want to lose touch with that ideal. I don't want to lose touch with what my parents or what my father went through. My mom was born in Moses Lake, Washington, and they met later. So, you know, but anyway, yeah, that's what America means to me. Like, people say, you know, yeah, America's the land of opportunity. Well, yes, it is the land of opportunity, because people the world over have in the past fled to America because it's a land of opportunity, and they're still coming to America because it is still a land of opportunity.
Yep. Yeah, and it's crazy to me. You know, I'm a pretty big legacy guy, right? I think about what mark I'm going to leave on the world and making a family and what I'm going to be able to do for other people. Like when I'm gone, when I'm dirt in the ground, right? How will what I've done make a difference, make an impact for the people who come after me?
Yeah.
And when you think about what has come before you, right? All the hardship, all the difficulties, all the little decisions that all those people, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, their lives could have gone any which way, right? They could have looked at a situation and thought, you know what, this is really difficult, and I'm out, right? Or it's not worth it. I'm going to go a different direction. And any amount of those decisions could result in you not being here, right? But despite all that stuff, they made those hard choices. They made those hard decisions. They made the sacrifice. They came here, continued to sacrifice. And lo and behold, here we are, right? And so I've always felt, I don't know if the weight is the right word to say, or pressure, maybe just purpose, right? Burdened with glorious purpose of continuing the legacy that brought me into the world.
Right.
Right? Because so many amazing things have happened that all of a sudden I'm here, right? And you think about all your ancestors like looking down on you,
right,
and saying, dude, we busted our asses
right,
so that you could be here, so that I could have the fancy technology and laptops and cell phones and all this stuff.
And we complain when our internet goes down,
yeah,
right?
First,
what a hardship.
Yeah, right. Hashtag first world problems,
Right,
It's like, oh man, my internet's too slow. Like I can't stream my Netflix and FaceTime and, get on Facebook Live at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's, there's a lot of complaints, right? And especially for younger generations. And I don't want to specifically put them in a box, right? And I'm actually not the biggest fan of like dividing the generations the way that people do it now.
Yeah.
But I will say that sometimes people complain about how there's all these different things that we're trying to argue about, right? And I don't necessarily want to open up that can of worms, but the fact that we have the freedom to argue about it is amazing, right? The fact that you can just have your own opinion about something, and it might not be socially accepted, that's fine, but the government's not going to come in and say...
Not yet,
right? It's like...
There's a conspiracy theorist in me rearing its head, right?
Yep. But that's the amazing part for me, and we've had on Memorial Day, we had a Memorial Day episode where we gave thanks to those in the armed services, right? Military members, first responders. It's always struck me as a really emotional aspect of that when you see a service member who says, look, you might not appreciate me or what I've done for this country, but I fought for your decision to be able to make that choice.
Oh, totally.
Right? And I'm just like, oh
what
my gosh,
what a thankless job,
Yeah. So it's, for me, America and legacy is synonymous, right? If you care at all about where you've been and where you are and where you're going, you care about the environment that you live in. And America is that environment.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And as business owners, I mean, my gosh, right? You, if you want to do something different with your life, if you're born into a certain type of, economic class, however way you want to say it, and you want to make changes, you can in America, right?
Yep.
You can build your own business. Like I was walking somebody through the logistics of like creating their own LLC and getting their bank accounts and EIN and all this other stuff. And it was like a 30-minute phone call. And I remember thinking, that's amazing. Like somebody could start their own business.
God bless America.
Like that, right? Yeah, God bless America, dude.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing opportunity that we have as business owners and as people who care about our legacy.
Yeah. My older brother is an attorney. Johannes Stephanus Adrianus Klaus III. Right? That's my older brother. So, yeah, he's an attorney. He graduated from Boise State, summa cum laude. Am I saying that right? I don't know if I'm saying that right.
You said that right, yeah.
And then he graduated from Northwestern Law in Chicago, magna cum laude, and he was the editor of the law journal there. Just a great guy, right? And somebody was complaining about attorneys or lawyers or, the lawyer jokes. Oh, 3 lawyers walk into a bar or whatever, all the lawyer jokes. And he kind of said, with kind of tongue in cheek, but really like seriously, oh, you don't like lawyers? Go to Cuba. Dude. You want to experience what society is like without lawyers and attorneys and rights? Go to a communist country and see what life is like without lawyers. And that comment just always stuck with me because there's a system in place here that allows for opportunity, that allows for capitalism to take place. Yep. And as a capitalist myself, I absolutely love that I can look back and know where I came from. I came from, well, my father. I didn't. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, and then Boise, Idaho. I can't really say that my life was that difficult, I think really the only anxiety that I felt as a kid was when you're in the last 60 seconds of the level in Mario and the music doubles, right? And you're like, I got to get to the flagpole, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So life wasn't hard for me, but it was hard for my father, and it was hard for his family. And so coming out of that, if I lose touch with that, then it's easy for me to get real complacent or to feel like I'm entitled to something. But the way that my father raised us, he raised us to feel no entitlement. And I don't feel entitled to anything. I was raised with the mindset that if you want something, you go get it. No one's going to give it to you. Go make it. Go make it happen. And in America, you can do that. You can say, I want to start a pest control company. How do I do that? Well, first of all, I call Eric and he tells me how to how to form an LLC and get an EIN and open bank accounts and stuff. And then well, I guess I'll go get a solicitor permit and go knock door to door and put on my own accounts, right? Yep. Like you can build something from scratch. You can build your own empire. Me, you, and Jana, over the last decade plus, have built a small empire, and our parents didn't do that. My dad worked for General Motors for 25 years, and then he was a security guard at a DirecTV call center for the next 15 years. But he bloomed where he was planted, and he did the best he could. And my mom was a receptionist at a foot podiatrist office in Boise, and so we don't come from entrepreneurial roots. You and Jana don't really either. No. And our parents, they are freaking amazing. Yeah. But the thing that they taught us, and I remember every day on my way to work when I was 14, I had my first job at McDonald's. I had my mohawk, and it wouldn't fit under a hat, so I had my mohawk, and I'd skateboard over to the McDonald's. And before I left every single day, my dad would put his hands on my shoulders, and he would say, Jacob, make sure you give your employer an honest day's work for an honest day's wage. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, Dad. And then I skateboard off, But, those words, dude, they stick in your mind. Yes. And even as a punk 14-year-old kid, I did that. I tried to give my boss an honest day's work for an honest day's wage. And then at the same time, I was in these punk bands, and I'm like, I'm sticking it to the man while I'm working at McDonald's, giving my boss an honest day's
selling
work
79-cent hamburgers.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's amazing just watching the growth, right? I mean, I remember my first job. I was 14 years old. I worked at a bike shop. And he actually paid me under the counter because it was just like this teeny little hole in the wall kind of place or whatever.
Is that the one on Vista?
It was. It was one. Yes. Well, it was a different one. It was down the street. It's not even there now.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was $5 an hour, and I was just elated. I was so excited.
What'd you do with all that money?
I don't even remember. Right. And I remember I came home one day and I was late for some family event that we were supposed to go to.
Yeah.
And I was covered in bike grease.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, where have you been? You know? And I was like, I've been at work, Dad. And he's like, you have a job? And I was like, yeah, the bike shop. And he's like, what? And like, what is going on? You know? And it's like, I will be thrilled one day if any of my kids come home, you know, and they magically just have a job. Right.
Yep.
And I can't remember actually The Go-Giver. Okay. So book recommendation.
Great book.
For this episode. In The Go-Giver, you know, he goes through these.
Not to be confused with the Giver.
Not The Giver.
It's a different book.
Yeah, Jake would know The Giver. The Go-Giver, right? Really, really good book. Awesome business philosophies. Definitely read it if you haven't read it already. But in that book, one of the core principles has to do with your compensation, right? Mm-hmm. And the law, in so many words, says your compensation is proportional to how many you serve and how well you serve them, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that mirrors exactly with what the opportunities of America are.
Sure.
Right? If you want to build a better life for yourself, all you have to do is put in some hard work and bring value to other people. Yeah. Right? And the more people you serve and the more value you bring to those people, the more money you will make.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cap, right? Like, you know, obviously there's a graduated tax bracket and there's going to be a little bit more money you have to pay in certain ranges, but realistically, like, it's limitless.
Yeah.
You know? And when you're building that legacy and when you're building that empire that you're talking about, it's not about the money that you make, it's about the lives that you touch.
Oh, totally.
And so not only is America trying to provide this opportunity for everybody that lives there to follow that kind of philosophy, but if you think about it, that philosophy just perpetuates itself, right? You know, whether or not you believe in capitalism or anything else, like, it is its own wheel that continues to provide opportunity for those who will be from those who have been, right? And it just continually turns that wheel.
Yep.
And when you're a business owner and you get to be part of that process, and you go from, you know, being a solo operator to hiring your first technician to hiring your first office staff, and you start providing jobs and income and value for these other people, let alone all the customers that you have, you get to see your fingers in the mix.
Yeah, you see your fingerprints on all of that.
Yeah, you know, and it's such an amazing thing, and none of that exists. I mean, in parts it exists in other countries in different ways, but in America it is a unique, amazing thing.
Yeah, you know, I think that I had a paradigm shift when I was, how old was I? 24 years old, you know. I was wasting my money I was wasting my time and money at Boise State. And I'm not saying that college is a waste of time and money for everybody. For me, it was a massive waste of time and money because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was just, that's what you do. You go to college, right? So I'm going to college, and I had this idea that working was what my parents did, right? You go to work, you get paid, you pay your bills, and you keep going to work, and you keep getting paid, right? So that, in my mind, that's how work works. And so I've got this buddy that's like, hey, do you want to come sell pest control? And I was like, what's pest control? And he's like, well, it's, you know, he explained it to me, right? And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So that summer, that was 2005, went down to California, and I sold pest control. And this is my friend Danny, and he told me before I went out for the summer, he goes, listen, this is what my friend told me. He said, selling pest control door to door is going to ruin you for any other kind of job. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, once you discover what your time is worth, no other job is ever going to suffice ever again. And he was right. I discovered that. I did when I in summers, you know, in subsequent summers, I would tally up how much money I made per hour, right?
Sure.
For how much time I worked. And it blew me away. You know, making $100, $150, $200 an hour, right? What freaking job are you going to go get where you get paid $250 an hour. I mean, maybe for an attorney or like a doctor or whatever, but that takes decades to get to that point. And here I am, a college dropout, making six figures a summer selling pest control door to door.
Yeah.
And I remember this one time. So that was the first part of that paradigm. The second part of the paradigm was this one summer I'm knocking doors, and this guy comes out, and he's pissed that I knocked on his door, right? Mm-hmm. And he yells at me as he's kicking me off his doorstep, "Go get a real job," right? And as I'm walking away, I'm like, "A real job, a real job? You mean like where I have to go to punch in from 8 to 5 every day for the rest of my life, and where I have to kiss my boss's ass, and I have to kiss his boss's ass, and then maybe I'll get looked at for a promotion, and I'll work until I'm 75 years old, and then maybe, just maybe, all the money I put into my 401k will be worth something. And I have to work all year long. I don't get to take September through March off to be with my family, you know? Yeah. And I was like, that kind of real job? That sounds like that real jobs suck, you know? Dude. And I'm not saying that to disparage. This is just me. This is my paradigm shift. For some people, that's like the dream, right? That's the American dream. But for me, the American dream was, it changed all of a sudden. What I do with my time, I can get paid commensurate with what my value is per hour. And no one is dictating to me what my value is per hour. The only thing that dictates that is the sweat on my brow and the holes on the bottom of my shoes, right?
Yep.
And to me, honestly, that's what the land of opportunity is that any person on the planet with the gumption to go out and do that can come to America and do that.
Yep. Yeah, there's nobody dictating your value, your worth, right? And obviously the one common thing, which is still common, barring any crazy technological advances here, is that we all have the same amount of time, right? And so if we're all limited by the same number of days, essentially, that we're going to be able to experience this planet, right? Then I want to make that time as effective as possible, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I could be working for someone else. Yeah, I could be, right? And could I have a comfortable living? Sure, I could. But do I want to be in control of what that living looks like, right? Yep. Do I want to control the quality of the time that I spend? And that's really the difference maker. Is it's not necessarily about how much money you have, right? Like we've talked about the difference between the top line revenue number and then the profits and all this other stuff. It's not about how much money you have. It all comes down to, do you spend your time the way that you want to?
Right.
And is the quality of your life up to the level that you want it to be, right? And being able to decide that on your own, through your own efforts, that's America, right?
Yeah. Yep. So money doesn't buy happiness, but money buys time, and time buys freedom, and freedom buys time with your family, right? And
you can invest that into happiness,
right? Yeah.
Yep.
And just to cap off this thought about my dad being an immigrant, I don't remember where, so don't quote me on the exact statistic, because what is it, like 110% of statistics are made up on the spot or something like that. But I saw this thing one time, I can't remember where I read it, but the majority percentage of entrepreneurs in America are immigrants.
Oh, I believe it.
Right? I mean, you think about the drive. You think about the drive of people to come to the land of opportunity and open up a bodega in Brooklyn, or start a pest control company, or buy a few cars and start a cab company, or whatever, that drive is what makes America great, is that people can come from all over the country, hang their shingle and get to work for themselves. And I just think that is such a blessing.
100%.
Yeah.
And we are, unfortunately, out of time. I feel like you and I could probably talk about this for hours.
Oh, yeah.
But we will make sure that we cover this. I'm sure this will trickle into other episodes, right?
Yeah. There's always next 4th of July, too.
Right? 100%. So for you guys, we appreciate you taking the time to listen in. If you have a coworker, manager, or an owner who could benefit from listening to this episode, the best way to say thank you to us is to share this episode with them. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, go find the group and join. It's BugBucks Plus. Lots of information and great connections there. And if you have a topic you want discussed here on the show, drop it in the group. As always, this episode is brought to you by BugBucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. Visit bugbucksplus.com to sign up and start building today.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Hit the subscribe button.
Thanks again for listening in. And until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
You're listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Eric Bassett and Jake Klaus.